In a dramatic turn of events, the Trump administration is facing intense scrutiny following revelations that top national security officials inadvertently shared sensitive military plans in a group chat that included a journalist.
National Security Advisor in President Trump's first term, John Bolton. Ambassador Bolton, thanks very much for being on the show.
Glad to be with you.
So let's just start with this. What was your reaction to learning about these secret plans being communicated in this Signal group chat?
Well, I was shocked, and I was without words, and I say that not because I'm more virtuous than anybody who was in that group. I just couldn't imagine it was happening. I couldn't imagine anybody would use Signal. Some of the guests have commented that Signal is highly encrypted. I'll just say this: if you think Signal is equivalent to U.S. government secure telecommunications, think again. All the consequences you've been discussing are obviously going to be enormously important, but I just can't, to this moment, get over the idea that during the days that group was going on, not one of the participants said, we shouldn't be doing this on Signal.
Sir, do you know of anything like this happening in Trump's first term?
I'm certainly not aware of it. I mean, I didn't even use the government's unclassified or classified email systems that much. Most of the things that were covered in what was recorded in the Atlantic article should have been discussed in the Situation Room in a principals committee meeting or a full NSC chaired by the president. It looks to me like this was a typical Donald Trump decision, let's bomb the Houthis, that then everybody raced to implement without talking about the implications, including, for example, Vice President Vance apparently on this chain saying, I don't agree with this. Why are they discussing it after the decision is made? That alone shows what's wrong with what's going on here. Ultimately, if people can't attend the Situation Room, you're on a secure government line. You're not on WhatsApp or Signal. And some of these issues, honestly, it's old-fashioned, I know, but they should only be discussed face-to-face where people can have it out if they have a disagreement, not on an email chain.
Sir, do you think somebody should be fired over this?
Listen, Donald Trump's not going to fire anybody unless he thinks this redounds to his personal detriment. And we'll see what happens.
Do you think that this is worse than what Hillary Clinton did with her private email in 2016? I know you were very critical then.
Yeah, I was very critical then. And, we call this process learning. That when somebody does something like what she did, whether she deserved to be prosecuted or anything else, that goes into the memory in the body politic. How can you then turn around and conduct, let's forget the classification issue. How can you conduct official government business over a non-official channel? Maybe there's some in extremis situation when you're on Samoa or something and there aren't any official channels. But they were in Washington, probably in their offices. As I say, words fail me here. I cannot even imagine this happening.
Sir, do you think that Trump administration officials broke the law when they had this Signal chat?
I don't know enough about it, but I'll tell you this, just like Donald Trump isn't going to fire anybody, whether they deserve to be fired or not, unless he feels the heat personally, I have zero faith that this Justice Department will prosecute anybody. Zero.
Mr. Ambassador, I want to play for you what President Trump so far has said about this. He was asked about it by reporters who were covering a different event with him at the White House. Let's watch.
I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
So he says there that he's being told about it for the first time. Now, when that happened, this story had been out and in the banners on various news networks for a couple of hours. Do you buy what the president said there?
No, because he sits in his dining room, or at least he did in his first term, and watched Fox mostly. Occasionally he'd tune into CNN, but maybe even MSNBC, but mostly Fox. If Fox had it on the news in the past several hours, then he knows about it for sure. Or somebody like Dan Scavino would have run in and told him. But notwithstanding that, now you've got him on tape saying he's hearing about it for the first time. Now we'll see if he feels any heat. If he doesn't feel the heat, these people are golden. They're in for as long as they can stay.
Sir, do you think, are you convinced that the Chinese or the Russians or any of our adversaries had access to this information as it was being communicated? Do you think it was fundamentally insecure and possibly widely disseminated?
You know, I don't really know enough about what they were up to be able to comment on that. I would just say this: we have government secure communications facilities for a reason. They may not be perfect either, but there isn't anything else that's as good. How clear can I be on that point? That's why you don't use non-official channels for official business, and especially not for business that's sensitive or classified. It's a very simple point, and you would think that somebody on this chain would have figured it out, unless it bespeaks of a wider pattern of behavior that goes well beyond the events dealing with the strikes on Yemen.
What's your assessment of how Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, handled this situation? He watched this unfold. When he realized it was legitimate, he took himself off. He did write that this happened, but he did redact significant classified information that he was then privy to. It was not published.
That was his takeaway. Joining me now is Larry Pfeiffer, former senior director of the White House Situation Room under President Obama. Larry, it's a real pleasure to welcome you here. I want to throw up for you as sort of a how should we call it, a baseball card, if you will, of the Trump officials included in this Signal group chat. You've got J.D. Vance, Vice President, Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, Pete Hegseth, Defense Secretary, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, John Ratcliffe, CIA, Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff, Steve Witkoff, Special Envoy to the Middle East, Stephen Miller, Senior White House Advisor, and Jeffrey Goldberg, Editor-in-Chief of The Atlantic. So one of these things is not like the others. Could you share with us why this is a problem? Because I think some people are saying, well, I don't understand what the big deal is. It's a big deal.
Yes, it's inexcusable, actually. In my job as the White House Situation Room Senior Director, I was responsible for managing those conference rooms that are famous from photographs of national security meetings. But a more important job that I had was leading a team of individuals who made sure that there was secure government communication equipment, devices, platforms available for use by anybody who would attend these interagency National Security Council meetings at the principals and deputies level. And by available, I mean 24/7 at the home, at the office, in a car, on a plane. So the equipment was available to them within steps of anywhere they were. For them to be using ostensibly encrypted platform on non-secure phones is really unconscionable.
So let's put up for folks the Atlantic screenshot of the group chat text, and so what some of this was being conveyed here, celebrating the strike itself. You've got J.D. Vance, excellent. John Ratcliffe, a good start. Mike Waltz gives the fist emoji, American flag emoji, flame emoji. So I guess that's supposed to be it's hot. Marco Rubio, good job, Pete, and your team. Mike Waltz, the team in Mall did a great job as well. Stephen Miller. Street work, I guess supposed to be great work, powerful start. So you've got this level of communication. What is amazing to me is how do you have, and you should know, because you just alluded to the work that you did under the Obama administration, when you're pulling together plans to, level bombs in another country. Is the go-to, let's get on a group chat and talk it out, or is it to go into a skiff or some other secured location?
Yeah, absolutely. You go to a skiff, you go to the White House Situation Room, you go to the skiff that has been constructed in your home to protect these communications. That's where you conduct it. Even if you're on the road or you're in an airplane, heck, we had Secretary Kerry on his yacht out in the waters off of Martha's Vineyard coming in over secure communications to a National Security Council meeting with President Obama. So it boggles my mind that these individuals would do this, particularly since these individuals included John Ratcliffe, who previously served as the Director of National Intelligence and had served on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who served on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Marco Rubio, who led the Senate Intelligence Committee, all of whom surely have received counterintelligence briefings about the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, etc., actively seeking and targeting non-secure devices that would include platforms like Signal. So, and Michael Waltz, who also served on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and on the China Task Force while in Congress. And Michael Waltz had served in the Bush-Cheney administration, which was probably one of the most well-organized, well-run National Security Council staffs that ever existed. So he had seen how these things should be done. So it's inexcusable. It's either laziness or incompetence.
Well, yeah, or because given the background and experiences of some of the folks who are on this group chat, and the fact that, they have ties to prior administrations in which that level of security was always paramount in conducting foreign policy or national security activities. What does it say?
This breach has ignited a firestorm of criticism, leading to widespread calls for accountability and potential resignations within the administration. On March 15, 2025, Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, received a Signal group chat invitation from National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Unbeknownst to the administration, Goldberg was mistakenly added to a conversation titled Houthi PC Small Group, which included high-ranking officials such as Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and others. The group discussed imminent U.S. military strikes against Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, detailing operational plans, target information, and attack sequencing. 2 hours after Goldberg received these details, the U.S. commenced airstrikes in Yemen. The National Security Council acknowledged the authenticity of the messages and announced an internal review to determine how Goldberg was added to the chat. NSC spokesperson Brian Hughes stated that they are reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain and emphasized that there were no threats to troops or national security resulting from the incident. Defense Secretary Hegseth denied that war plans were discussed in the chat, labeling Goldberg as deceitful and highly discredited. He asserted nobody was texting war plans and criticized the media's portrayal of the incident. President Trump, when questioned about the breach, claimed ignorance, stating, "I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time." The incident has elicited strong reactions across the political spectrum. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries called for a congressional investigation, describing the administration's handling of sensitive information as reckless, irresponsible, and dangerous. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer labeled the breach one of the most stunning breaches of military intelligence in recent history and urged bipartisan hearings to address the security lapse. Conversely, Republican Speaker of the House Mike Johnson downplayed the severity, stating, "I think it would be a terrible mistake for there to be adverse consequences on any of the people that were involved in that call. They were trying to do a good job. The mission was accomplished with precision." I think that's what matters in the end. Calls for resignation. The breach has intensified calls for accountability within the administration. Democratic lawmakers and former national security officials have demanded resignations, particularly targeting National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Representative Jim Himes, ranking member on the House Intelligence Committee, expressed horror at the use of a commercial messaging app for discussing sensitive information, calling it a brazen violation of laws and regulations that exist to protect national security. Former CIA Director and Defense Secretary Leon Panetta commented, "Somebody needs to get fired," highlighting the potential risk if the information had fallen into the wrong hands. The leak has also exposed internal disagreements within the administration. Vice President J.D. Vance expressed concerns in the group chat about the timing of the strikes, citing potential inconsistencies with the administration's message on Europe and the risk of rising oil prices. Defense Secretary Hegseth countered, emphasizing the need to restore freedom of navigation and re-establish deterrence. Despite the controversy, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that President Trump maintains utmost confidence in his national security team, including National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. This incident underscores significant lapses in operational security and raises questions about the administration's handling of classified information. Legal experts have pointed out potential violations of the Espionage Act due to the communication of classified information over an insecure channel. The use of Signal, an encrypted but commercially available messaging app for discussing sensitive military operations, has drawn criticism. While Signal offers end-to-end encryption, it is not authorized for transmitting classified information, highlighting a potential breach of protocol. The inadvertent inclusion of a journalist in high-level discussions about military operations represents a profound breach of national security protocols. As investigations unfold, the administration faces mounting pressure to address the systemic issues that led to this lapse and to hold accountable those responsible. The incident serves as a stark reminder of the critical importance of stringent communication protocols in safeguarding national security interests. In a significant security lapse, top officials within the Trump administration inadvertently included Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, in a Signal group chat discussing sensitive military operations against Houthi rebels in Yemen. This breach has elicited strong reactions from both Democratic and Republican lawmakers, with some GOP senators expressing deep concern over the mishandling of classified information. Senator John Cornyn described the incident as a huge screw-up, emphasizing the gravity of the situation and the need for accountability. Senator Roger Wicker, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, acknowledged the seriousness of the breach, stating, "We're very concerned about it and will be looking into it on a bipartisan basis." Senator Lisa Murkowski highlighted the potential double standard in responses to such incidents, remarking, "Think about what we would do if Biden were president and this came out. We would raise the roof." She added, "It's going to be interesting to see if anybody loses their job over this." Despite bipartisan criticism, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that President Trump maintains utmost confidence in his national security team, including National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. The accidental inclusion of a journalist in high-level military discussions has raised significant concerns about operational security within the Trump administration. While Democratic lawmakers have been vocal in their condemnation, the response from Republican senators has varied, with some expressing concern and others offering more measured reactions. As investigations proceed, the political ramifications of this breach continue to unfold. In the 3 months since President Donald Trump was inaugurated on January 20, 2025, his administration has embarked on a series of aggressive policy shifts and administrative actions that have significantly altered the federal landscape. These moves have sparked widespread controversy, legal challenges, and debates about the future direction of the United States. One of the administration's most contentious actions has been the mass termination of federal employees across various agencies. Citing a need to streamline government operations and eliminate inefficiencies, the administration has dismissed tens of thousands of federal workers. Notably, on January 24, 2025, President Trump fired 17 independent inspectors general from federal agencies, a move that critics argue violates federal laws requiring advance notice to Congress. Additionally, the administration targeted members of the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and the National Labor Relations Board, among others, leading to concerns about diminished oversight and accountability within the federal government. These actions have not gone unchallenged. Several federal judges have issued injunctions against the administration's mass firings, ordering the reinstatement of unlawfully terminated employees. For instance, a U.S. district judge ruled that the firing of Kathy Harris, chair of the United States Merit Systems Protection Board, was illegal, mandating her reinstatement. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the educational community, President Trump signed an executive order aimed at dismantling the U.S. Department of Education. While the order retains critical functions like managing student loans and Pell Grants, it signals a significant downsizing of the department. This decision has prompted legal challenges from various groups, asserting that such actions could harm students nationwide. The administration's influence has extended into higher education, with Columbia University facing significant repercussions. The federal government cut $400 million in funding to the university, alleging a failure to protect Jewish students and staff from anti-Semitic harassment. To restore funding, Columbia agreed to several demands, including policy changes like banning face masks on campus, empowering security officers to arrest individuals, and appointing an academic overseer for specific departments. Critics argue that these measures compromise academic freedom and reflect increasing governmental intervention in educational institutions. The administration has issued a series of executive orders that have faced legal scrutiny. One such order aimed to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within federal agencies, leading to lawsuits from civil rights organizations. Another order sought to restrict medical care for gender transitions for individuals under 19, prompting federal judges to issue injunctions against its enforcement. These actions have raised concerns about potential violations of constitutional rights and the overreach of executive power. On the international front, the administration's actions have led to strained relations with allies and adversaries alike. Greenland's prime minister accused the U.S. of political interference ahead of a visit by American officials, reflecting fears that President Trump's expansionist ambitions threaten the global rules-based order. Additionally, the administration's handling of conflicts in regions like Gaza has drawn criticism, with reports of significant civilian casualties resulting from military actions. The administration has also experienced internal upheaval, with key officials departing their posts. Alina Habba, a longtime lawyer and advisor to President Trump, transitioned from her role as White House counselor to serve as the interim U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey. This marks the first departure of a senior official from the current administration, which has experienced less turnover than the previous one. The administration's aggressive policy changes have sparked public protests and legal challenges nationwide. Federal judges have blocked several executive orders deemed unconstitutional, and civil rights organizations continue to file lawsuits against actions perceived as discriminatory or overreaching. The rapid pace of these changes has left many Americans concerned about the direction of the country and the potential erosion of democratic norms. The first 3 months of President Trump's second term have been marked by significant policy shifts, legal battles, and public outcry. As the administration continues to implement its agenda, the nation remains deeply divided, grappling with questions about the balance of power, the role of government, and the protection of individual rights. In response to the Trump administration's recent policy initiatives and executive orders, the legal system has actively intervened to assess the constitutionality and legality of these actions. Federal courts have issued numerous rulings that challenge and, in some cases, halt the implementation of the administration's directives. U.S. District Judge Ana Reyes issued a preliminary injunction against President Trump's executive order banning transgender individuals from military service, stating that it likely violates their constitutional rights. This decision underscores the judiciary's role in upholding individual rights against executive actions. Federal Judge James Boasberg reaffirmed an order preventing the Trump administration from using wartime powers to summarily deport alleged gang members under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. Boasberg emphasized that affected individuals must have the opportunity to contest their deportation, highlighting concerns about due process. The Federal District Court for the District of Maryland blocked the enforcement of executive orders aimed at eliminating DEI initiatives within government agencies and educational institutions. The court found that these orders likely infringe upon constitutional protections. Multiple lawsuits have been filed challenging the executive order attempting to end birthright citizenship. Federal judges have issued preliminary injunctions blocking its implementation, citing conflicts with the 14th Amendment. The administration has appealed these rulings, with the cases progressing through the appellate courts. The administration's efforts to reduce the federal workforce have faced legal obstacles. A federal judge ordered the rehiring of 16,000 probationary federal workers, a decision the administration is contesting, arguing that the judge lacked the authority to issue such an order. Trump administration has expressed frustration with the judiciary's interventions. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth criticized Judge Reyes for halting the transgender military ban, accusing her of overstepping her authority. Such critiques have raised concerns about the administration's respect for judicial independence and the potential erosion of the rule of law. Legal scholars warn that the administration's defiance of court orders and targeting of judges and legal professionals resemble authoritarian tactics that threaten democratic institutions. The unprecedented rate at which courts are blocking the administration's executive orders underscores the judiciary's crucial role in maintaining constitutional checks and balances. In summary, the legal system is actively scrutinizing and, where deemed necessary, restraining the Trump administration's policy actions to ensure adherence to constitutional principles and the protection of individual rights.